Hello, my friends. I am your host, Daniel Willcocks, and you're listening to episode number 22 of the Writer's Chair podcast. And it is Tuesday, 2nd of June, 2026, as I record this. In today's show, I'm going to be talking to Kayleigh Dobbs of Happy Goat Horror about being a review and horror influencer. And in this conversation, we cover the misconception of horror being a sexist genre, the real reason authors don't get agents, how Happy Goat Horror went from a personal reading tracker to an unmanageable flood of review requests, and a lot more. There's a load of interesting information in this one today. But before we get into all that, here is my personal update. And it is a bit of a shorter one today. Much less going on. As I said in last week's episode, been keeping it a bit of a slower week. Lots has been going on, but I've been keeping the old gear and cogs turning in the brain. The big announcement that I have is for anyone who's listening to this podcast who is a writer or is thinking of writing and wants to find an accountability group to sit down and talk with. I've been teasing the return of the Writer's Room, which was my old activated authors Zoom sprints where we used to jump on with a group of authors for 60 to 90 minutes. We would sit down and we would all work on our books together, and we'd have chat sessions and breakout sessions and Q&As and all that kind of stuff. And I'm bringing it back, and I finally picked a date on when it's going to be coming back. I will be telling all the people on my little list of people who have registered their interest already today. So if you're listening to this on the podcast and you're part of that list, I'm about to tell you, I'm telling the camera first, but the listeners going to know first. Technically, in the podcasting world is weird with timelines. So you will know very, very soon. But so the Writer's Room is going to return on Tuesday, the 16th of June, 2026. So from the time of recording, that's in 2 weeks' time. For people listening to the podcast, that's in a week and a half's time. So how this works is if you go over to my website, which will be linked in the show notes, which is danielwillcocks.com, WILLCOCKS.com /the Writer's Room. There you'll find all the information you need to sign up. It is going to be a program that is £20 a month. You get a session every Tuesday, 90 minutes every Tuesday with myself. Your first 2 weeks are absolutely free. So you can jump into the group. You can try it out. If it works for you, awesome. If it doesn't, no hard feelings, but at least you're giving it a try. But I am very, very excited to get this running again. I've already seen some familiar faces on the list of people who are interested in joining. I feed off of and get a lot of energy from being in rooms with other writers and being creatives. And yeah, I've missed it. It's been a while. So one more time, that is danielwillcocks.com /the Writer's Room. And you find all the information over there. Register your interest. All that good stuff. The other thing, which I'm not going to be pushing for too much longer because the deadline for this anthology is the 28th of June. Hatching Season, my Infestation anthology. I'm very, very excited. We're in triple numbers now, triple digits with the amount of submissions we have. I see that growing massively in the next few weeks as we round down to the deadline. 2,500 words to 5,000 word short stories on the theme of infestation. It could be bugs. It could be love, it could be hate, it could be whatever you want it to be, as long as it fits in some way the theme of infestation. Would love to see you over there. All the information you can find for that anthology is at devilsrockbooks.com /submissions. Nice and easy process. Just drop it into like a nice little Google form. I've done it. I've made it as easy as possible as I can for you. I'll also soon be assembling the team that is going to be reading those stories, because just to take away any bias, I ensure that all of the stories have been stripped of the author names when I'm reading them. So all I'm reading is a story. I don't have any context or clue as to who's reading what. With hundreds of stories, I make sure that I've got a team that is working to a certain criteria and they're putting the best stories together. So it's not just based off my opinion. They'll have the final say over the stories. Very, very excited to do it. And every single penny raised goes to helping the charity Mind. So, horror for a good cause. I absolutely love that. Publishing that gives back. Delicious. And in personal news, I am figuring out what to do with books at the minute. So I have finished the latest round of amends on one book, on a non-fiction that I'm looking at bringing out later this year. I have a fiction book basically done. I have another fiction book that I'm going to run through and do some edits of that isn't far off finishing. I've got another fiction book that I've done the first draft of that I need to look into and do the next load of edits. That's going to be book 5 of the Twisted Tales series. I've got another fiction novel that needs to go into edits with a co-author. I've got another book. All of that to say, I am kind of capitalizing on the finisher energy at the minute. And I'm really trying to get myself into position. I'm working and ideating on a novel that I'm very, very excited about in the background. And I'm kind of not letting myself get to the writing until I've cleared some of the decks of the other stuff. So as a lot of people who have tried writing will know, sometimes it's really hard to get the wheels spinning, get the traction on the ground, get stuff happening. So while I'm in this phase of momentum, I'm trying to focus less on the publishing and the marketing and just to create and just to enjoy the process of creation. I have had conversations this week with my partner about making and vamping up vamping up my collection of books so that I can start to do some really nice print versions to sell at events and to go out and speak to some more readers and try and get a bit more out into the community, which is one of my strategies for later on this year. But at the minute, it's just finishing stuff. Like the last few years have been hectic. They have been wild. They have been very, very unreliable, which means that I've got a lot of scraps in the air that I just want to tighten and bring together and make something of. So I guess all of that to say, for people who are like worried that they've been at this a while, they've got unfinished drafts left, right, and center. As I said last week, life sometimes takes over. You don't always get the straight kind of line through of being regularly productive and keeping on that treadmill. And sometimes you just got to go with the punches. So I'm kind of riding this energy wave while I have it, because no doubt at some point it will dip a bit and then I'll figure out what I'll be doing then. Other wonders of writing. So with all of that said, all the links will be in the show notes for things I've mentioned, but the interview today is with Kayleigh Dobbs, who is the chief reviewer person of Happy Goat Horror. We'll go into a lot of this in the interview. I'll keep this very, very brief. We've met a few times over the years. It's very, very exciting to get Kayleigh onto the show. I hear her name a lot in circles when I'm out speaking to other horror authors. She's clearly very passionate about what she does. She speaks a lot about modern horror in this interview. She speaks a lot about the culture of horror, what brought her into horror, where it's going, indie publishing, traditional, all that kind of good stuff is wrapped up in this nice little bow of an episode. So I'm going to shut up now, move out of my own way, and basically say that if you're ready, I'm ready. So let's pull up a chair, grab a notepad, and let's get into the interview with Kayleigh Dobbs.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. A little bit about Kayleigh. Kayleigh is a writer and reviewer based in South Wales with a focus on horror and comedy horror. Her micro collection, The End, an apocalypse-themed book of shorts from Black Shuck Shadows, was a 2024 Imagine Award finalist for Best Collection. Her short story, TBR, is included in This Way Lies Madness, an anthology from Flametree, which is currently a Bram Stoker Award finalist and British Fantasy Award finalist. She has a master's degree in scriptwriting, though her focus shifted some years ago to more bookish formats, and she freelances as a proofreader and editor. Kayleigh also runs Happy Goat Horror, a review website and YouTube channel for horror fiction, with a particular interest in indie horror fiction. On the YouTube channel, she posts reviews, themed lists, rankings, and creator interviews, with recent interviewees including screenwriter Jamie Flanagan and author Joe Hill, Stephen King's son. So, Kayleigh, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of the show, so really happy to be here. I loved your interview with Jonathan Janz.
Oh, amazing.
I don't know much of Jonathan's work, but what a lovely person.
He is. Oh my God. He was one of the first big authors that I got for me personally, because, you know, you interview different people and like, no discredit to some people, but as a reader, you get more excited about certain authors that you interview. And I'd read Wolfland and was just blown away by it. And Janz was doing some awesome things with Flametree. And it was one of those ones, it was the first person I reached out to and I was like, don't know if he'll say yes. And he did. And like you say, like, he is just the most genuine, lovely, giving guy. Like, we back and forth occasionally on like Instagram and stuff. And he is just a font of like inspiration and feel good. And yeah, kind of just the dream guest really. So if you haven't yet, but I highly recommend if you get a chance, like read one of his books, reach out to him because he is awesome.
I've read some of his shorts, but I've like bumped him up my list now because I do have stuff on my list of Jonathan's. But he was an absolute delight to listen to. So I loved that interview, Daniel. That was great.
Aww. This is a nice way to start complimenting me, but let's swivel the chair back round to you, because obviously, you know, we mentioned just before we came on air that we've crossed paths a few times in the past. Like, I think we were at the same event in 2022, Ships in the Wind. 2023 or 4, we couldn't figure it out. We chatted a bit. I won one of your goats, one of your little crochet goats. The first ever one on Instagram, which is somewhere. I moved house a couple of months ago, so it's somewhere. Oh, are you bringing one for the camera?
Yes. It's one of these fellas.
Yes.
Crocheted
Yes.
especially by my mum.
They are adorable. And yeah, my son was very, very pleased when we first got it because I think he would have been about 8 at the time. So it's nice to give like kids little squishy intros into horror at a young age, and
Yes, I agree.
just curve them in early.
You
I mean,
guys.
it's been a absolute joy to watch your kind of journey from appearing on the scene, growing Happy Goat Horror into what it becomes. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of my writer friends around me is just the incredible stuff that you are doing for horror, particularly in like the indie horror community, as we read in the intro. So like your name is getting out there. It is clear that there is a lot of passion here for reading, for horror, for writing, and hopefully we can get some of that across in this interview. But there we go. That's my little gush to kind of lead us in this chat.
That's really nice to hear. Thank you. I do try my best. I just really love horror, and the more embedded I've got into like going to conventions and getting to know people, the more motivated I've been to. I just want to tell everyone about all these books. And indie publishing is so hard because you just don't have marketing departments, and so word of mouth really is the thing. So I just really try my best to tell everyone about all the cool stuff I get to read. But it's like a double pleasure if it's an author I know and I love their work, and like if anyone hears about any of this stuff because of my site or channel, it makes me feel really good. So it's kind of selfish, really. It's just like giving myself a little happy endorphin boost.
This is the bubble. I'm going to share a few bits here and there, and like if you like it, awesome. I've made the world a bit brighter. Weirdly, with horror. But before we kind of like go a bit more into the like where you're at now, can we get a little context into where you came from, where kind of all of this journey started from? Because I mean, I've listened to a few interviews about you in anticipation of this conversation. I don't know if this is the way in, but I did kind of want to touch on this before we started. Is you wouldn't think a conventional way into horror was you loved Britney Spears.
I know I've said it, but I don't remember.
I don't think, but also it catches my attention because I don't think I've told anyone this, so this is an exclusive for you and for anyone listening to this podcast. I was in the official Britney Spears fan club.
No, you were not.
I was. When I was 6 or 7, I can't remember when she first came. Like, my dad sat down on the computer, I had a poster of her on the wall, and he literally joined her newsletter list in which I genuinely believed I was getting emails from Britney Spears. So we have something in common.
Yeah, well, it's Britney, bitch. You know,
It's
like
Britney,
she cannot be denied. So I suppose I always leaned towards horror stuff when I was a kid. Like the stuff I was drawn to was like the darker Disney stuff, Snow White, and like the weird stuff. I wasn't really much of a musical person, so I wasn't really into you know, the your more typical popular Disney stuff. And then I discovered a love of heavy metal when I was a teenager. And I don't know what it's like everywhere, but if you like metal when you're a teenager, you can't like any other genres. That's what it was like in my area anyway. So I was just lying, and I was like, I was buying. It was like new metal at the time, so like Linkin Park, Papa Roach, and stuff like that. But also I was like in my bedroom bopping around to Britney Spears and NSYNC and just like lying. I'd be in school like, NSYNC. Well, really, I was there like doing the dance routines and stuff. And I just always wanted to be a writer. That's what I used to tell everyone when I was a kid. I'm going to be a horror writer when I grow up. I'm going to be an author. And then I started going to, skip ahead many years, I started going to horror conventions with my friend Justin Park, who used to run Sinister Horror Company. And he always used to trade at those. And then one year he was like, why haven't you gone to any of the bookish conventions? And I was like, they're a writer and bookish conventions. I didn't even know. So I was like so alien to indie. I didn't know indie horror was really a thing. Justin and Jim from Ginger Nuts kind of were my gateways in, where I discovered, oh, there's a whole world of fiction I didn't even know existed. And then I went to Chillicon, where I was too shy to talk to anyone, and I embarrassed myself in front of all the people I did talk to. That was only 4 years ago, I realized, because of Facebook memories has been coming up.
Yeah.
I can't believe that this has only been 4 years for me. I started Happy Goat Horror about a year later. Between the 3rd and 4th year of Happy Goat Horror, so somewhere in there. But I can't believe it's only been a few years, because I feel like I've got to know everybody I feel like I've been here forever now. But yeah, that's a kind of a jumbled version of the path into reviewing and stuff as well. But I've just always loved horror and books. So
Yeah.
basically the gist.
So take us back to that first event you went to, because one of my previous guests that was on the show, Julie Heiner, had similar things we spoke about in-person events. And I think probably for my listeners, this is going to be a lot of things I talk about with people, because I'm looking at trading more at in-person events and having stalls and stuff. And without getting too much into the weeds of AI and the way that technology is going, I am fully predicting there's going to be a bit more of a push into these sort of in-person events. But they are a terrifying thing for someone who's not been to one of them before, whether that's a horror one, whether that's a more writerly bookish one. What was your sort of first experience like? You obviously said, that you kind of embarrassed yourself, but what did that look like? And is it a case of you thought you embarrassed yourself, or did you genuinely embarrass yourself?
Well, in some cases, apparently it was endearing. And in others, I think I scared Mick Garris. I've talked about this before. So I was just, the thing that really got me about Chillicon was because that was my first writing thing. So like there are authors there that I've been a lifelong fan of. And I just couldn't believe that they were just walking around amongst the regular folk, because I was used to go into horror cons where it's mostly actors. They're at a signing table, you have to pay if you want to meet them or pay for a photo, and you get them for maybe a minute, and they're just so inaccessible. The like celebrities of horror to me were people like Tim Lebbon, Ramsey Campbell, and I just couldn't believe it when I just saw like Tim wandering around. I was like, oh my God. So like they don't have like their own area. And Justin was laughing. He was like, no. He's like, you'll get used to this with these conventions. You'll make friends with everybody. And I was like, you can't make friends with Ramsey Campbell. And then as I discovered, you absolutely can. And it was I was too nervous really to talk to anybody properly, but it like lit a fire, and I felt so inspired when I left there. I wrote loads when I left, and people are so kind. Like, I called Ramsey Mr. Ramsey when I went up to him because I was asking him to sign books, and he said I was a nice young lady inside all my books, and he was really nice. And like, I've come to think of Ramsey kind of like, I hope he wouldn't mind me saying this, but I feel I refer to him as like my granddad. He doesn't know that, like, but I wish he was my granddad. But I got so comfortable with him and Jenny now, his wife. Like I love seeing them. It's hard to believe that only 4 years ago I had to be forced to go and talk to him because I was so intimidated. And if I could just quickly say about Tim, because every time people ask me about like my favorite writers and stuff, I always forget to talk about Tim because Tim and I are friends now, and it leaves my brain to talk to him about him as an author. But Tim has been one of the single most like important people in horror for me for years, and getting to like the privilege of getting to know him because we don't live very far apart. And at one convention, I asked him if maybe I could like buy him a coffee and pick his brain a little bit about, just writing stuff. And he was like, oh yeah, he's like, but I'm a bit swamped at this convention, but we don't live far apart, so we could just go for a coffee. And I was like, and then it took literally years. It's like we like on a semi-regular basis we'll meet up for like a cake and a coffee now. And it was only until recently my husband was like, when you go out to see Tim, you don't have to keep saying Tim Lebbon. Like, I know who you're talking to. He was like, oh, he's like, is it occurred to you that you're friends yet? And I was like, oh, yes, but like it's and Tim is one of those writers for me where I've loved everything he's published. I think he's amazing. And I think, I know he's well known, but I feel like he should be even more well known. I think
for sure.
Way more of his novels should have been adapted into films by now. He's got such a cinematic mind for his storytelling. And so like my tastes as an author and habits that I have as a writer, like I've taken a lot of my lessons from Tim, and the fact that he's such a wonderful, generous person with his time as well. He's like, I don't think he is aware of like how much his friendship has meant to me the last few years, because it's so weird getting to be friends with an author that you were like a massive fan of. But sorry, that was like a little bit of a tangent, but I just really
No, I love it.
I really, really wanted to talk about Tim a little bit there, because I always like, but people are like, oh, recommend an author. I just forget that I'm like, meant to talk about Tim's. Yes, sincerely love him. He's one of the best people I've ever met, and like he's really encouraging and helpful and like enthusiastic about other people's writing. Yeah, I just love him. So that was like a little Tim tangent.
He's just a professional, and like I'm gonna continue a little bit longer just because like for anyone who hasn't yet listened to the episode, I did do an interview with Tim. It's near the beginning
awesome.
So go back and listen to that because again, like everything Kayleigh just said, Tim is an awesome human, but also like you say, I think somehow he's just in that weird like slightly outside the orbit of names that I mentioned, and I don't think I've ever told like the story of how I first kind of got in touch with him, and it was such a, I don't know, civilian way of meeting him, and it comes back to Chillicon. So a few years back, I think I bought Vellum, like the book formatting software, and had a spare code. So I was like, okay, just post it on the Facebook group. Anyone want a spare code for this? And out of nowhere, Tim pops up, and I hadn't read any Tim yet. So it was one of those where like I kind of knew the name but didn't. So I was like, okay, cool. There you go, Tim. Have my 20% off code, whatever it was. Thought nothing more of it. And then a couple of years later, I read The Silence as like a reading challenge. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then I can't remember how it happened, but saw him in my message archive. And I was like, huh. I've met him before. So I did a kind of like, read The Silence. It was awesome. It was like, oh, thanks, mate. And then when we went to Chillicon, again, out of nowhere, I saw the back of a guy wearing a Frank Turner t-shirt, and huge Frank Turner fan, as is he, as is everyone. But just literally tapped on the shoulder, was like, Frank Turner. And he turned around, was like, Frank Turner. I was like, it's Tim. And that was like our first time speaking. But like, you're right. These events are kind of incredible because I don't know. I've never been to, say, a romance convention. I've never been to a fantasy convention. I've never been to like a thriller convention. But there seems definitely to be something within horror that goes against the preconception people have that horror is dark, horror is demonic, horror is really grungy and just unfriendly. And it is, as you say, it's one of the most welcoming environments. And I went to StokerCon in 2023, and it was exactly the same, like just walking around with like Gemma Moore and Nick Cutter and Eric LaRocca and Paul Tremblay and all these people. And it's wild and so easy to do.
Yeah, and it's really encouraging if you're a creative person, especially if you want to go into anything bookish yourself, because these people are like, they're so, there are authors I haven't been able to get interviews for Happy Go Horror, but that's because I can't get to them to ask them. I've never been actually turned down though. I've had a couple of people that like just waiting to find the right time, but people generally are very like willing to talk to you and answer your questions and like help you, give you advice. And it is a lovely area of the book industry, I think. Yeah, these are honestly like, they're like second family at this point. This is like honestly the nicest group of people collectively I've ever known. So yeah, I quite like the horror community. I can't tell you tell, but yeah.
Well, it's almost like you're championing them with their Happy Go Horror. So what is it specifically for you about horror? What were sort of the gateway books? What is it now? Because for me, I feel like horror feels very different in 2026 to say some of the stuff that you get from like the 70s, the 80s and 90s. Kind of my gateway into horror was Stephen King, of course, Goosebumps, kind of your classic sort of 90s horror. What was your journey and what is it about horror that you find so fascinating?
I've been really thinking about the why of this for a while, because I constantly am defending my love of horror to people who like, I don't understand why you like horror. And I'm like, well, you could try. Then you could ask people why they like, instead of being judgmental. But
I don't like that.
Yeah, my gateway stuff it was Stephen King, Christopher Pike, those point horror books. I can't remember everyone that wrote those, like Sean Hudson. And then I liked things like Return to Oz, Gremlins and Critters.
Yeah.
Those kinds of films. The Last Unicorn scared me to death when I was a kid. If you've seen, it's like an animated, I only saw it once and it scarred me for life. And The Dark Crystal also.
What's that?
I don't even know if that is horror, but that is so scary. I haven't liked puppets.
I don't like puppets.
No. I think the reason that it hooked me so much as a kid is because horror stories tend to be about people overcoming things. Underdog stories about people who are like isolated and like maybe there's a thing going on and no one believes them and they got to solve it. And I got bullied a lot as a kid, and I felt very like, I did have some friends, but I just generally grew up feeling like everyone didn't like me. So I read a lot. Roald Dahl as well, I suppose, was one of my earlier ones, because Roald Dahl wrote a lot of stories about kids that were up against it. And I guess maybe those stories felt really hopeful to me. And then as I got older, I got into George Romero, and I was like, oh, this is fun. Look at this whole new facet of adult horror with all like the ridiculous gore and stuff. And the best way I've ever heard this put, I could never articulate this about horror stories, but Joe Hill said this, and I was like, oh, that's the wording I've been looking for. He said that real life is hard and it can be really dark. Bad things happen to good people all the time, and it doesn't seem to make any sense because there's no reason. And he's like, that feels narratively lousy. But when you're in horror fiction, there's a reason for the horrors and there are rules. So people either find their way out or they don't, but there's a structure and a purpose and a reason for the things that are happening, and it makes a little bit more sense. And I think that maybe that's where it is like, because real life is worse. like horror stories, are even the nihilistically ending ones, are a bit more hopeful than some of like the real world scenarios. And so I tend to, it's an escape. It's like a little escape hatch. I feel comforted. So maybe that's what it is.
No, I love that. And I think, like, for me, similarly, like it's the triumph of overcoming in some way. Like, it's never always going to be a happy ending, but like I'm kind of a realist in many ways. So I don't like the kind of rainbow happy endings, because I'm like, that wouldn't happen in real life. Like, I like the kind of reality of it. One of my favorite answers to that kind of question was I did an interview with Nick Cutter, which I don't know if you've listened to, but there's a part in that where he's talking about the Queen, which was at the time his latest release, and like, gorgeous book. I love everything Nick Cutter does. He is
he's good.
So good. But you know, for a lot of people, it's like, what's this book about? Oh, it's about a kind of scientists experimenting with combining insects with humans kind of thing. But when you ask the author, like, what's it about? And his answer was, you know, that moment when you're sort of 15, 16 on the cusp of going into the big world, and you and your best friend in those teenage years have kind of drifted apart just from, you know, life differences. It's that. And I was like, oh, okay, that's like a really beautiful, emotional, character-driven way to look at a story. And then horror is obviously just, you know, the packaging around it. But the actual core of this story, it's a really realistic look at what it's like to be a teenage girl as you're growing up and going into whatever your future life is.
Yeah. I also find there's less of a tendency to force a happy ending in horror if it doesn't feel natural to the story or where the characters go. So it feels more authentic.
Yes.
Even if it's a sad ending, I'm like, oh no, that makes sense though. And also, this is something I argue with people about frequently. I really feel that horror has got a wider representation, a good representation of women in fiction, whereas people will be like, horror is a sexist genre, but they're just thinking of
Horror
like,
was a sexist genre.
to a degree, all the genres still are a little bit, but like that's people who aren't horror fans, I think, that are just thinking of like older slasher films where, you know, a woman gets her boobs out and then she's stabbed to death. There is some sexism in the filmmaking and all that there, but I typically find that there's more empathy towards women in horror fiction, especially stuff I read, and I appreciate the depictions of women in horror more than I do in other genres. And I read a study last year that said there's the same amount of directors in horror fiction, female directors, as there is in romance. So even though romance is typically marketed towards women, starring women, and it's about women, most of the people making it are men. I was like, you can't tell me that horror is a disproportionately sexist genre of media when the other genres that are marketed specifically towards women are still more male-led. So I think that that's impacted me more as I've got older, as I've like noticed these kinds of things more, I think.
I think horror's always been a pioneer. It's always been being on the fringes of a lot of genres and sort of people's tastes. It does seem to be the genre that takes more risks, that takes more chances. Like the last few years, there's been a huge wave in sort of Latinx horror and, you know, queer horror and all these kind of voices and names that are coming into the fold. And it's well deserved and it's well earned. It's really, really nice to see. And like, I don't really see that, particularly in traditional publishing. I don't see that in a lot of other genres. So it does seem to be very progressive and not afraid to test new ideas.
Yeah, and the more people that are included in the creation of stuff, like the more people of different backgrounds, and stuff that are included, the more interesting the genre becomes. I love reading horror written by queer authors because the life experiences are different. So like the perspective is different because of like how people have been treated in society and things like that. And some really good horror stories, like ideas that I would never think of because I haven't walked that same path. I've got like my own perspective, but like it's really eye opening. And I do think it's another thing I love about horror. I really think that as a genre, it does the most for empathy, like encouraging empathy for people who are different to yourself, because of the diversity. And we still have a way to go, but diversity in the authors and the types of stories and the characters that are being depicted, I do think it's a more eye-opening genre than something that kind of sticks to, like how much romance have you seen or read that has same-sex couples?
Not a whole lot.
Yeah, I've seen more of that in horror fiction than I
Yeah.
have romance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I find it more interesting, way more interesting. There's like better stories coming out of it because of it, and more to learn. You learn more about other people's. Yeah, I'm just a little emphatic about.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you've built a mini empire around this love of horror fiction, this love of independent fiction. So tell us a little bit about the origin of Happy Goat Horror, because you went to a convention, you were reading horror, and then at some point you went, I'm going to share what I'm doing. I'm going to try and champion other writers in this space.
I was thinking about starting my own like horror website for a bit, and I was like, it's probably going to be. I initially was like, I'll do like horror books and films. So horror, yeah, books, films, and games is what I was initially planning to do because I also love horror games. And then reading is just more time consuming, so it ended up taking over. But I'm fine with that. That's just where it naturally went. But I think it's because I used to write reviews for Ginger Nuts of Horror and a couple of other websites every now and then. I'd submit something, and then I think I just wanted a place to pick what I wanted to talk about all of the time. So I'm really grateful to all these other websites that like gave me a start and gave me a place to put my reviews and things and my thoughts. But I think I just wanted, it was kind of like a reading tracker for me. Well, because sometimes I'll think of a book I read years ago and I'm like, I loved it, but I don't remember what it was about now because there's only so much space in your brain. And so that was kind of it. And then the name came out of my little niece Connie. I was showing her. I have like a horror sleeve, and I've got sorry, it's upside down here, but I've got black fillet.
Nice, yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, do you like my tattoos, Connie?" Because she was like really looking. She went, "No, except for the happy goat." And I hadn't launched the website yet because I wanted to have like a unique name for it, and so I was like, oh, that's it. Happy Goat Horror. So I do owe that to Connie, the name. And it kind of, I was like, oh, that feels like it has a good ring to it. And I love goats. And obviously goats are, symbolism in horror. They come up all the time. And I was like, I do often get asked if I'm a Satanist, though. That was the one thing I do. I do sometimes get messages going, why do you have Baphomet in the background in your office? And I'm like, I just really like Baphomet. I'm not religious at all. It's just I don't know if I'm appropriating Satanism, actually now that I think about it. I mean it in a flattering way, guys. That, and then I just I think I started with ranking every Stephen King. At the time I'd read every Stephen King book to date, so I think that was the first thing I posted was like ranking every Stephen King book. It took me ages because
Was it like 70, 80, more?
Somewhere. It just keeps putting more out.
A lot.
And then that veered into indie fiction the second I opened up for review requests. I did not think, the end of last year was the first time I looked at my website analytics. I had no idea how many people were actually looking at the site because I didn't want to look in case it wasn't that many, and I didn't want to be like discouraged. I wasn't a hobby. And then I looked and was really surprised. But when I opened review requests, I got so many. I thought I might get the odd one every now and then. I was getting like a few every day, like an unmanageable amount, just me, because it's mostly just me. I do have people that dip in and out sometimes with a review, but it's mostly me doing all the requests. And that was what really turned me on to all the indie stuff, because it was like writers I might never have come across if they didn't ask for a review. I found some of my favorite authors because of that. And then I was like, oh, do you know, I am still going to post about Stephen King and Ramsey Campbell, but they don't really need my publicity. So I tried to focus more like on indie stuff then instead.
Yeah. Well, so you are kind of uniquely situated then to know, I guess, confident is not the right word, but what is the difference in your mind between sort of those traditionally published books versus indie? Is there kind of a difference in how they feel? Are they more similar than we kind of believe them to be? And, you know, we're just putting labels on stuff. Like, what's your kind of experience looking into that world?
I think so there are people who will claim that indie fiction is like a quality drop from traditional publishing. And in terms of like formatting and maybe like the polish on the editing, that is true sometimes. However, there's a lot of, I'm just going to move aside and not say anything about anything where's my finger going? I'm not saying anything about anything in particular, right? But there's also really well-known...
You'll have to watch on YouTube to see what we're talking about.
There's some really popular series out there that narratively are full of plot holes. And, you know, some might say are crap. Right? Whereas with indie fiction, I find there's a lot more risk taking in the stories because people aren't encumbered by like by an editor or a publisher saying, oh, well, we want this type of story, or you like this, but you can't put this in there because that's going a bit far, or, oh, horror's great, but why don't you do something a bit more commercial? And I have heard traditionally published authors say that people that they were working with that were publishing them tried to steer them. So I think that with indie fiction, people are just writing what they want because there isn't a lot of money in it for a lot of people. People are just writing what they're passionate about, telling the stories they want to tell, and writing for the love of writing and telling a story. So I think the stories that come out of that are really weird sometimes. Really, like in a good way. Like you won't have read this before because this is such an odd idea. People like Eric LaRocca, who is now traditionally published, but has always been writing this kind of weird, freaky, transgressive, literary extreme horror, basically. And he's forged a path for other people now because at some point, I guess someone realized, oh, this guy's actually really popular, even though he's an indie. Maybe people actually like reading this. So I'm not generally an extreme horror fan, but Eric's work, his writing,
it's beautiful.
Yeah. So I really hope that it opens up the minds of people who are in control of the money with all of this kind of stuff, and maybe give people more of a shot. Just not more interesting always. I love Stephen King. I love Rachel Harrison. I absolutely. So it's not like one is better than the other. It's just different. There's more variety. Like if you read across both, I think.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the weird fold that we're in at the minute. Is that I say often, like, the great thing about things like Amazon and being able to self-publish is that anyone can put out a book. But the bad thing is that anyone could put out a book because, you know, I've read stories that people have put out that could do with editing, aren't the greatest of stories, but, like, you know, the people who have written them are happy with them, and that's totally on them. They can be happy doing that. That's what they're after. But then you get this kind of, on the other end, this sometimes snobberishness from traditionally published people who are just like, well, indies can't do anything. And it's like, well, but indies are among you. Like, and you have people like Adam Neville now, and you have people like, it slipped my mind, but there are these sort of big authors that are now looking at indie as a means to bring out their books and as a legitimate path to keep bringing their work to people.
Yeah. There is a snobbishness because I think people think, oh, I've heard people, this annoys me. I've heard people say like things like, well, if you can't get an agent, maybe it's because you're not talented enough. And I'm like,
crap. Anyone listening to this, that is crap.
I'm like, agents work on a commission basis. Like if they don't sell your book, they're not making money. And publishing works in trends. So you could write the most amazing unique horror novel in the world, but if it goes against the grain of what's popular right now or what they predicted is going to be popular for the next year, you're not going to get an agent like for that book for that reason. It's nothing. I mean, obviously there are going to be times where people like the quality just isn't there for the agent they've pitched or whatever, but like it's not, that is not necessarily what it is. Like I know so many people that could on writing quality definitely deserve representation and they don't have it, but maybe it's because they're writing such niche stuff that doesn't fit anywhere marketable. I say, well, or what publishers think, mainstream publishers think is marketable. I think that there's a narrow view of what they think people want to read, and they stick with safety.
For sure, 100%. Well, so, for people who are potentially independently published, and the majority of my audience tend to be indie published, there's obviously sites like yours in which you're championing indie horror. Do you know of other places in your bubbles? Have you heard of other little places that are good for independents to be able to get their voices out more while kind of battling against this entourage from above of traditional marketing?
Yeah, actually, and if anybody wants to contact me at any point for this, I have a spreadsheet of reviewers that I like.
Amazing.
And I'll happily send it to anyone if you're looking for if you're looking for websites and blogs and stuff for people that talk about indie fiction. I came across Erica Robin Reeds is an American reviewer that I found through my job, and I love her. There's this guy Daniel that runs a site called The Rotting Zombie, and he writes really long, thoughtful reviews. Like one of my I don't know how popular his site is. I don't see people posting about it much. But he really cares about what he's reading, and he'll give you like if he can get to your book, because he does have a bit of a wait list like we all do now. But yeah, and then obviously there's like sites like Ginger Nuts and Comfortably Dark, I think are really good. DLS reviews. There's loads. I have spent many hours scouring the internet because I like to read reviews also. So, but yeah, if anybody wants any to be pointed in a direction, I'm happy to like let you know who I know of. I do have quite a list at this point.
It just grows and grows. I think that's, again, like the beautiful thing about the time we live in. There's so much because so many people have the chance to publish and to bring their work out into the world. And it's the best of times and the worst of times, in the words of Dickens.
Sorry, Phantasmagoria magazine. Yes. Also. That's like in print, but like I got so excited. I got a review of my collection in there, and I was like really excited when I opened. I was like, ah! Usually everything's all online now, so it is like it's really fun to see something like in print now.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because we read in the intro you've got a short story in a collection that is award nominated. So you spend a lot of time reading. You've obviously been writing for a few years as well. You've got a few books behind you. What is it like to have that kind of, I guess, recognition on its way behind you?
Well, first of all, Dave Jeffrey and Lee Murray, who are the editors of that anthology, are fantastic people. It doesn't really make a difference to anyone in the anthology if the anthology wins, but I really hope for Dave and Lee that it does, because they put so much work into that. Getting into a Flame Tree anthology was like a bucket list.
I've got a story I'm literally writing at the minute because that's been up there for me.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite presses. I think Flame Tree is fantastic. Like their books are so beautiful, and
you see your entire like Flame Tree collection up behind you.
Well, yeah, those are my Mark Morris specific ones.
I gotcha.
But I have others on a different shelf somewhere. They're so professional and so like they're
very what's the word? They know who they are. Do you know what I mean? Their identity is really, really strong.
Yeah. Yeah, just absolutely beautiful work. I've always written. I got a little bit twitchy about writing since I've been reviewing, because there were a few people that were like, yeah, you really shouldn't be reviewing if you're a writer. And I was like, but I'm also a reader, and I just don't agree. And I was like, yeah, but the quality of your stuff is now going to have to be up here, because otherwise, like, who are you to review? I'm like, no, for a second that went in, and I was like, oh my God. And then I thought, no, like, that's silly, because I could write something that's objectively, well, I couldn't, but someone could write something objectively perfect, and there'll still be people who don't like the story itself or whatever. I just try my best. As a writer, I feel like I'm learning all the time from the amount I read now, especially my peers and like people in indie fiction. I read stuff all the time that makes me jealous that I didn't think of it, or that I'm not that kind of writer. There's an indie author from the States called Tyler J. Welch who's unreal, and I read his debut and I was so angry. No debut has got any business being this well crafted. I couldn't believe it. He's a friend now.
A friend I hate.
Like, I love getting to read people who I'm like, I'm always mad that I'm not ever going to be Adam Neville's standard, because I just can't write literary horror. Like, it's just not my style. But I wish I could. And sometimes I try to force it and then I read it back and I'm like, it doesn't really work when I try to do it, because I don't. But I constantly feel motivated and inspired and like supported as a writer, even more since I've been a reviewer. Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. I think it's because I've made friends with so many authors as well, and everyone. I never feel like people are competing. It feels like there's room for all of us, and all of us are happy to like talk about each other's stuff. So, I found it a nice place of. I guess it's helped. Really, it's been a place of community that's kept me going a little bit when I don't feel like writing as well. So that's always really nice.
Yeah, especially those events and stuff. Like you said earlier, when you turn up and you come away from those and you just feel so energized from just being around people as passionate as you. Because I find that, you know, a lot of people, horror is such a unique little bubble. And not even horror, let's pull it back to just writing in general. Like, there's so many people that have mentioned around me they want to write a book, but they've got no intention of doing so. And it wasn't until I started connecting with people online after I'd written a book that I started to feel more like I belonged, because my parents didn't get it. My ex didn't get it. Like, my friends didn't get it. Like, it's most of my time is spent around people that don't understand what this industry is or kind of why we do what we do. So to have those events, to have that community around you, it's so important.
It is. It's honestly like family, and I've learned really great lessons from spending time around so many authors. And one of the greatest things I've learned is, because I really struggle with a routine. It's nothing to worry about, but I just have like various health issues, like chronic migraines. So like I'll have a plan and then I wake up with a migraine and that's gone for 2 days now. And I used to really beat myself up about like my lack of discipline with like, oh, I'll get up at this time and write for this many hours, and I just can't a lot of the time. And I've learned that every author I have ever known, especially the traditionally published ones that have had like a traditional career, they've all got completely different routines. There's no paint by numbers right formula to this, so you just got to kind of do your best, I guess. But that really helped me relax and stop being so horrible to myself about my productivity, because I'm very slow getting stuff out, but I work really hard on the stuff I do. So,
Yeah.
you know.
So for people who are maybe thinking of getting into writing, or for people that are quite early on in their book, what is your kind of message? And this, again, transcends horror into sort of all genres, just, you know, new writers. Do you have any words of wisdom? Do you have any kind of bits of advice that you'd give to them from your perspective?
This is like sort of gathered from all the writers I've got to interview and stuff. I think the main thing is not to think about what other people are going to like when you're writing. Just get your first draft down, and then you can decide what you've written about when you reread it and you redraft, because you'll see themes and stuff in there maybe that you could like pull out a bit more. But you just have to care about what you're doing, because I've read people that were clearly trying to ride a wave of a trend, but there's like a disconnect. I think like not being afraid to I don't know if this is good advice, but I always connect more when it feels authentic with the characters, and I feel like the writer put a bit of their own experience in, rather than trying to write about something that lots of other people are writing about with no experience. Like, I can always tell if somebody writes a character that has anxiety if the author has ever had anxiety. For example, that's a key. I'm like, oh, they've really tried, and it's not like they've done an insulting job, but clearly this person has never actually, because there's like people who do identify with that can see it. So I think authenticity and just caring about what you're doing is really the main thing, and like the business end of things comes after. But I don't think you can go in thinking, oh, I want to write a book that sells, because you obviously do, it's a given. But that can't be your motivating factor, I don't think. Otherwise it reads like that.
Yeah. I do also think as well, just kind of touching on this button again, that in the world that is becoming what it is with AI, I think in order to be a writer in the future, in the next 5-10 years, you have to lean into what you know and being human. Because in the interview I did with Luke Condor a few weeks back, something he said in there just stuck with me, which is, AI is going to be able to write trend fiction. It's going to be able to write the kind of paint by numbers, very kind of like thinly plotted thing that some people will enjoy, and they won't know that it's AI. But in order to break out and to make sure that you're still seen in a world in which that's all covered, you have to write the most authentically you book, the book that only you can write. So I like that. Just don't, like, trends will come and go. You'll find places. There are some authors who, they wrote their book 5-10 years ago, and now they're finding agents of representation because their wave has just come in. So you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And just keep going. Because I honestly believe that that's like the only difference between like failure and success is like you have to believe in yourself and keep going as long as you care about what you're doing. Because I've seen really talented writers sort of like they get 3 books in and then give up. And I'm like, oh, but like
they're so good.
Obviously no guarantee, but like definitely not going to get anywhere if you give up. So yeah, I just think like doing things for the love of it to the very best of your ability. I think that's when I review, if like the formatting's a bit sloppy or it could have done with like another proofread or something, I don't tend to go hard on that anymore if the story's good. Because I'm like, that's what really matters. And you have to make some allowances sometimes with indie fiction because a lot of people are self-publishing and they're trying to teach themselves on YouTube how to format a 300-page book in Word, and it's a nightmare. And I know from experience that's a nightmare. I think like caring about your writing is first and foremost. Yeah, and just be bold. I'm too afraid to. Don't be afraid of your ideas because once again, Eric LaRocca.
Yeah. There's some ideas in there. So as we're getting close to time, I have another question for you, and then I have our quick fire round. The final question of this section. So we've obviously spoken about horror, we've spoken about your journey, we've spoken a little bit about Happy Goat Horror. What does the next few years hold for Kayleigh Dobbs and Happy Goat Horror? Do you have an idea of where you want the site to go, the kind of things that you're working on?
Yeah, I do. There's some things No, it's not a secret. For Happy Goat, I really just kind of, the YouTube channel especially, that has been growing very slowly over time. But I'd love a bit more reach just to get the word out about more stuff. Because a lot of the time when I interview authors, I feel like they don't get the reach on my channel what they deserve to have. Like Jamie Flanagan, for example, who's like one of my favorite people in the entire world. And I'm like, I said, there's probably not much in it for you to do this for me, but I want to talk to you. And like, I don't have a huge audience. I would like to be a bit more structured. I always forget about this. So like Women in Horror Month, for example, I thought it was on a different month this year. So I did a whole Women in Horror Month and then realized it was the next month. But I was like, well, I've done it. It's Pride Month now at the time of this recording. And I always mean to like be a bit more intentional with what I'm posting, but then I forget and then I'm just posting about what I read. So I'd like to do maybe more feature pieces. I would love to have more people involved on Happy Goat Horror, just with articles and things like that. But I can't pay anyone because I make no money from it. So I don't like to ask people to like, oh, please write for my site. I can't pay you or anything. Even though, I always wrote for free for other sites and I was very happy to just like have a platform and be involved. For my own writing, I've been saying this for years, but I am determined. Given myself a deadline this year, I have got to finish. I have written a couple of novels. They were just rubbish, so I haven't published them. But I think I've got the one I want to publish now, so I'm working on that. And I have a non-fiction project that I cannot talk about. Privately, but I don't want to talk about it publicly at the moment, because I'm just at the beginning of that one. And I keep having these like non-fiction ideas and then someone else brings the book out before I do. So I'm like, oh, don't tell anyone about it. So yeah, I'm trying to make a bit more time for my own writing because I do spend, I think maybe my time distribution is a bit skewed. I spend a lot of time reviewing, and then I'm like, oh, I meant to do a chapter today, and I'm too tired. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a kind of like a generalized, and just to do more, really.
Well, lots and lots going on. So now that that's all covered, we are into the fabled and dreaded quickfire round. So you know what's going on. We've got 10 questions we're going to throw at you as quickly as possible. Obviously, it's all in fun, so if it takes a bit longer, that's absolutely fine. Michael David Wilson sucks at this. I'm sorry, I love you, dude, but you were awful. But 10 questions to throw at you. Are you ready to go?
Yes, go on.
Marvellous. Nanny goats or billy goats?
Oh, billy goats.
Do you have a favourite word?
Oh, yeah, but it's the F word.
We'll take it. I love it. It's one of the most... No, it's one of the most diverse words in the planet, and I love it. Literally. Yeah. Who's your favourite serial killer?
Oh, I don't want to say a real life one because I'm very disturbed by real life stuff. Oh no. I don't remember his name, but that one from Exquisite Corpse.
Not read it.
Andrew Compton. That's it. I got to go fictional because I'm too disturbed by true crime.
Perfect. I love it. Paperback or ebook?
Paperback.
What song are you listening to on repeat right now?
Wax Wings by Periphery.
Nice. I've not heard that one.
No one's heard of this band, but I love them. They're my favourite.
There we go. Check it out. What's your favourite newly discovered author?
Oh,
who, I should say, rather than what.
God. Right, sorry. Give me a second.
Okay.
I need to... Oh, God.
This is an important question.
This is... newly discovered. Oh, shit. I'm going to leave people out. Oh, God. Right, I was literally filming a video before this. What did I read the last couple of months? Oh, okay. I'm going to say Saratoga Schaefer. I just read Tradwife. I really like... Not indie, unfortunately, sorry. I'm too pressured by indie, but... Yeah, that was a great book. Yeah.
Literally saw that pop up on the site I was looking at yesterday, so might bump that one up. Space or the deep sea?
They're both horrifying. The deep sea.
Okay. You're cursed to only have one book on your shelf for the rest of your life. What book is it?
Oh, no. How could you ask me such
I know, this is an unfair one, but...
Oh, no. I think I'm going to have... For all my talk of indie horror, I'm gonna have to say It by Stephen King.
Oh, nice choice, yeah.
I'd have to, if I could only reread one thing forever, I think that's what would keep me
entertained. To be fair, you get your value in pages.
Yeah, that's something.
It's a big book. Sunday roast or pancake breakfast?
Sunday roast.
And what one author would you recommend above all others?
Right, we already talked about Tim. That's a given. So let me just above all others. Oh, God, you're going to make me have enemies. Above all others, that's an impossible question. I gotta have to go Adam Neville again. Or if I can, just cheat and say another one, an indie, because I really, really wanted to have more readers, and she's so good. Her, S.Q. McGrath, Sarah Quinn McGrath. I think I have everything she's published, and she's just like one of those hardworking indies. She brings out at least a novel a year and has for like 10 years, and she doesn't have much of an audience, but she's someone who writes for the love of writing, and her stories are phenomenal. So if I could recommend The Women in the Woods is my favorite by her. She's fantastic. So
that's bumped up. I've actually never heard of her, so I love getting new recommendations.
Yeah, that's someone I discovered because of review requests.
I gotcha.
I'd never have come across it, so really, very happy if I ever get an email from her.
Fantastic. So, bonus question on top of the bonus question I'll ask in a second. What's your favourite Adam book?
The Neville book.
Yeah.
It's All the Fiends of Hell.
I've not read that one yet. The Ritual.
Yeah, I loved that one. If you haven't read it, for anyone who's listening or watching, try to go into it without knowing anything. Like, don't read the synopsis.
Okay.
Because I went in blind and I had no idea what the thing was that was happening, but it is on the back cover synopsis, and I personally had so much fun being like, oh, is it this or this? So I think it's fantastic anyway, but like, yeah, if possible, like, try to go in blind.
Amazing. And one bonus question, where can my listeners find out everything about yourself and all that you're working on?
Well, I'm awful on my author end of things, so I don't have like an author website or anything, but the best place to keep up with me is probably Happy Goat Horror on YouTube, because that's where I post a lot of reviews on the website, but I'm a little bit more personal on YouTube, and I talk about my own stuff on there as well if I have stuff coming up. So I'm meaning to be a little more structured and have I don't even log into my personal Instagram ever. I'm always on my Happy Goat Horror.
You just become the goat.
Yeah. But yeah, Happy Goat Horror, just in general, or on Facebook. I'm friendly. You can find me on Facebook, and if we like horror stuff, then we can be friends on there.
Hey. Well, yeah, I'll put all those links in the show notes. But for now, that is a wrap. So thank you so much, Kayleigh, for joining us on the Writer's Chair podcast this week.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure. This is so much fun.
No worries. And to everyone listening, thank you for being here. If today's conversation sparked something inside of you, go and do something with it. That's the whole point. And if you want to go deeper, whether that's with your writing, your process, or actually finishing your book, head on over to danielwillcocks.com/writers. There's a growing list of resources for you over there. But until next time, write bravely and dream big. Thanks again, Kayleigh.
Bleed.
Bleed.